CityCast Pittsburgh is coming to you today, care of the Pittsburgh Opera, presenting Puccini's enduring tale of love and heartbreak, Madama Butterfly. In 4 special performances, March 22nd through the 30th, you can experience the tragic love story of Cho-Cho-san and Lieutenant Pinkerton like never before. The images, Jens, that the opera is sharing from this really are so vibrant and beautiful. And of course, it's all paired with Puccini's stunning music. Learn more at pittsburghopera.org/citycast. Pittsburgh Opera, where can we take you? Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. When I first started running, I'll be honest, it's because I could not afford therapy and I already owned shoes. And I learned along the way, I also bought better shoes. But getting started or restarted, it can be kind of intimidating. So today, I'm with a couple local runners to talk about what to do, getting and staying motivated here, and importantly, how to handle Pittsburgh's massive hills. It's Tuesday, March 18th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I am with 2 local runners, Dan Lampman, the founder and president of Yin's Run Club. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
And Donald Robinson, owner and coach at Global Human Performance over in Point Breeze. Thanks, Donald, for being here.
Aloha.
I mean, how would you each describe the running culture, community here in Pittsburgh? Dan, do you want to kick us off?
I would say it's thriving. In the last few years, it's jumped up a notch, I think, in obviously like the general culture. Like run clubs are a thing that people are going to now.
I feel like I see so many groups popping off all the time
So
now.
many. Yeah. And there's a lot of different types of groups. I think one of the coolest things is that because there's a lot of different groups, because there's a lot of people that are adding to the community, it means that they're all bringing their specific little spice to it. And that lets each kind of lane of run club be a part of the greater running community of Pittsburgh, but also have their thing. And I think whether that's training, the community aspect, locale, like what region of Pittsburgh is it? Like it's all really, really cool. And that the people are really making it their own. I think generally just having more runners on the streets has been an awesome thing for the city.
Donald, what about you? I don't know. What's the culture like? Are people supportive? Are they judgy? What's the vibe?
There's this big generational shift, I feel. I mean, I think at a nationwide level, as Dan was mentioning, but definitely here in Pittsburgh, where being like healthy is cooler. And this is a way for people to meet more people. And people are just much more open about needing those communities. And so I find that the community is generally pretty open and friendly. There's definitely demographic niches about interest, age,
For sure.
Kind of like where you are with your life that can differ between groups. But they're all generally really friendly because this whole movement of people wanting to run, wanting to be outside, wanting to take care of themselves, there's a level of inclusiveness and like care that has to just almost come along with it as a byproduct to even help it grow and to just for what people are looking to get out of that run club experience of being able to enjoy that time with other people.
You know, there's always been that trade-off of, you know, who's a runner, what constitutes a runner, how does...
Yeah, do you get to call yourself a runner?
Yeah, and I think what's become interesting is that, in my view, at least with the Yin's Run Club and with the folks that I'm able to connect with, it's not a yes or no. It's more of like, what kind of runner are you? Where are you on your journey? How did you get started? What are you focusing on right now? I mean, like, there's a big difference between the types of runners that run trails and frick versus run the streets. And I think it's just a more of a sliding scale kind of continuum of people that call themselves runners these days. It's really exciting to see that, like, you can kind of claim whatever you want to be. And as long as that's something that excites you and that's how, you know, you get going, it's really fun to be able to claim that new thing.
Well, and I think that's something that can change too, right? Over time, like you might be into like a certain type of running or exercise or whatever at one point, but like now a different version of that fits your lifestyle a few years later. Well, and I feel like this time of year too is when I feel like people start like really flooding outside. Like you can tell who kept their fitness up over the winter and who is maybe like getting back into the motions now that we got a few extra minutes of daylight.
Donald, as a trainer, how do you recommend people get started? Like a true beginner has never ran, but maybe has had some other kind of experience. Like we're all physical people, but like getting started as a runner, the quote unquote runner, sometimes it can be intimidating.
For sure. I categorize new runners in two different groups. There are those who are new runners, but they played some other sports in maybe high school or college, but maybe they were a
Yeah.
volleyball player, a basketball player, football player. So they've run and they're used to being fit, but they've never done like long distance, quote unquote, running for 20, 30, 40, plus minutes. It's like a mode of fitness. And then there are people who are running because this is their first time ever getting into fitness and this is their entryway into fitness. And I look at those two things pretty differently because for those who are coming from other sport backgrounds, especially if it wasn't like a very long time ago for them, they have this tendency to kind of do too much and they want to run kind of fast all the time. And they're prone to getting injured or have these little aches and pains after their kind of initial burst of improvement.
It's humbling, that moment where you're like, oh my God, I'm tired now. What hurts? Like I can't even
Yeah.
identify that
Yeah.
muscle.
Why does this hurt? Yeah.
But they're loving the endorphin rush. So they'll run fast for 4 miles, 4 miles a day for like 5 days straight. And then on the other hand, with people who are, this is their first time being fit, I often like talk to them about doing more of a walk jog setup. Like how do you mix in,
Yeah.
how can you just keep moving for 30 minutes? And can you do a 3-minute walk with a 2-minute run and then being able to extend out the running intervals? Or often with those former athletes, it's often trying to curb down how fast they're running all the time so they can be a little bit more structured to make it more sustainable so they don't burn themselves out or like have a bunch of injuries.
I mean, in those early days, do you think that there's stuff that you should be doing to take care of yourself, like so you don't get hurt or burned out, like mentally or physically, like stretching, warm-ups? Like are warm-ups still a thing? Do people still do that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, at YRC, they warm up all the time.
Y'all are both like nodding emphatically.
100%.
So yeah,
100%. Yeah.
y'all are team warm-up. Got it. What do y'all recommend?
There's this whole crusade out here in the fitness world against static stretching.
Yes, I've seen that so many places. Like you're supposed to do dynamic stretching. Like you got to move while you stretch. But like if you work a desk job, like that is hard.
Yes. Sitting excessively is almost as bad as smoking cigarettes here and there. Like if you sit for 10 hours
Okay,
a day.
that attacked me personally. Like I work a desk job a lot of the time.
But that's more on the muscular atrophy part and like just your joints. But from a performance thing, only static stretching and going into running, the research says that doesn't help. Doing dynamic stretching and then going into your activity, that's where the research says it's helpful. But static stretching is not unhelpful. And if you've been sitting around all day, it is actually helpful.
Yeah. And I think I just turned 30, so I am absolutely doing warm-ups. I'm absolutely stretching. It's absolutely necessary. And I think like I to be honest, I was, historically my youngin days, I was not a person that warmed up.
No, I would show up to like a lifting class, like with like 30 seconds to spare, like trying to tie up my shoes and then jump straight into something that stopped over time.
And what I can tell you is that if you were like me and you think you can still do it, I also get migraines, and not warming up led to migraines for me because I would like push myself too hard. So take it from us. Like, don't do that. It will ruin your day.
That's a next level of punishment, man.
One thing I find for me that a lot of listeners, you might find this workout. If I'm going for a quote unquote easy run, if I'm going out for a run that is at the pace that I can have this whole podcast interview at while I'm running, I'm going to do a few static stretches and I'm going to do a few dynamic stretches. And I really might only take 60 to 90 seconds to do them. And then I'm going to run. If I'm going to do a workout run, let's say I'm at the track and I'm like, I'm going to run some 400s. I'm going to go through about 5 to 10 minutes of warming up stretches.
Yep.
And
400 is a lap too for my non-track friends.
Yep. One lap around the track. And I might do several laps around the track really fast or half laps really fast. I'm going to do some lunges and some squats. I got to make sure my muscles are actually really warmed up and ready to contract so that they don't get hurt. And if I'm racing, now I'm doing a bunch of running drills also to like, get in that competitive and heightened state on top of all of that. But for an easy ride, if I'm going out at Run Club, I'm warming up for a minute and a half unless Run Club makes me do more stuff.
Yeah, definitely a range depending on the goal for sure. What about gear? Like, sometimes when you get started with something, you're like, how can I do this as cheaply as possible? What do you think is actually like worth it, like versus like a nice to have? I'm thinking about like shoes and the fancy watches and all that stuff.
Shoes.
I mean, you have to wear shoes.
Right. But different shoes equal different things. And everyone has different feet, so everyone needs different things, whether it's inserts or shoes. People's feet rub differently. Like if you go to a store and you buy a pair of shoes and you are like, oh, this is the most uncomfortable thing of all time, it's probably the shoe. It's not you. So take a minute, try to talk to someone that you might know as a runner. But step one, take that decision not lightly. Shoes and mattresses you should always invest in, right? So make sure that you invest in them well. And it might be $160, but you'll have 300 miles on them. And depending on how much you run, you'll be able to hold on to them for a long time.
Yeah, I totally, just shoes. Running is free. Do not let people tell you otherwise. Running is free. You can run alone by yourself in the park. You can go to a free run club. You can do this all for free. I am taking my track team to a shoe store so that they can learn how to get shoes fitted on, because some of them are dealing with shin splints and they're like showing up in Jordans. And I'm like, you can't run in basketball shoes. Those will hurt. There are shoes that look nice and there are shoes that are good for running. And there's actually an overlap, but the shoes that exclusively just look nice, they're not for running.
Yeah. And some of those running stores are like kind of humbling too, because like they will show you exactly how you walk. And like sometimes you're like, oh, I didn't know my foot did that.
Oh, as someone with completely turning in ankles that are completely flat, and I have to wear orthopedic inserts to make sure that I can run, it is a problem. Again, I'm aging myself here, but you gotta find what works for you for sure.
You know what you just made me think of, Dan? I have a little quote. Running is free, but you might be running next to somebody who has $2,000 worth of gear on.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair. Today's show is supported by the Frick Pittsburgh Museum and Gardens and their newest exhibition, Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated. The CityCast crew just checked it out. It's so vivid. There are 15 panels from artist Kara Walker. If you're not familiar with her work, in this series, she places black silhouettes on top of old Harper's Weekly engravings. It's easy to forget now, but back in the day, illustrations like these were the main way a lot of people interpreted what it meant to be at war. There is a lot of patriotism and not a lot of the many free and enslaved Black men and women who lived and fought and died during this war too. Also, the prints are paired with other Harper's Weekly illustrations, so you truly get a sense of how these stories were being told at the time. And because it's the Frick, a small bonus, they actually had the original bound copies of these Harper's Weekly illustrations. Like they were just in the house, handy, ready to go, and perfect for a show like Kara Walker's. The whole experience is just such a striking and visual reminder of what you often don't see in depictions of things like the Civil War. We highly recommend it. Get your tickets to Kara Walker, Harper's Pictorial History of the Civil War Annotated, now through May 25th. And learn more at thefrickpittsburgh.org.
This episode is sponsored by Babbel. Are you holding back on foreign travel plans this year because you're afraid of the language gap? I'm not, because I have Babbel. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I'm learning Spanish on Babbel, getting ready for a trip to Mexico City. Babbel is the language learning app that gets you talking. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or at whatever pace you choose. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real-life stuff you actually need when communicating. With a focus on conversation, you'll be ready to talk wherever you go. Babbel has given me great lessons on getting directions, ordering in a restaurant, and making plans. And of all the things I'm doing in Mexico City, I'm probably most excited about the soccer game we're going to. So I was excited to learn how to cheer from Babbel. That'll be me you'll hear yelling, "Fuerza Tigres! Fuerza Tigres!" With over 16 million subscriptions sold, Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
What about like the headspace that you have to be in, like as a new person, or even someone like maybe like they feel new again because like they did this before, but they're like returning to it maybe. How do you recommend people kind of like find that motivation and in a way that like creates a routine? Because I feel like sometimes that's the hardest piece for a lot of people is like they want to do it, but wanting to do it and getting out there and doing it often enough that you get the benefit, like that's a different thing.
So Dan has built something that I believe makes it so much easier. You go to YRC, or any run club that you like, and you just show up and you start talking to people, and your conversation starts to just transition into you running, and you didn't have to do anything to think about that. You're like, I'm going to go meet up at a brewery or at the park, and I'm hanging out with my friends, and we're moving now, which I feel like for me has so much less of a barrier of entry versus if you're going to be running at 5:30 in the morning and you wake up to your alarm clock and you're like, I got to put my shoes on. I got to like get into this headspace to like go do that, which I mean, I think to some extent you just got to put your shoes on and go. And I find out running puts me in the headspace to feel like running if I didn't already feel like it. But just going to a social event, like I don't even think about the fact that I'm about to run.
Yeah. Is that what Yin's Run Club is? Like, I mean, obviously it's a running club, but like, is it like a social thing too?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So Yin's Run Club has evolved, and YRC being, the shorthand version, but it's evolved over years since 2021 into always that club that was focused on, yes, running, but it's running as a means of building community. It's not meant to say that this is going to be the thing that trains you. I'm not a trainer. None of my volunteer staff or board members or any of the volunteers are quote unquote trainers, save Donald. Thank you, Donald, for all you do as a volunteer.
Donald's a trainer.
Donald's a trainer. But it's an opportunity for people to come together. And what I try to do when we started, and what I'm really grateful to have an awesome team that still does, is like, remember when you were in elementary school or whenever, before any sort of anxiety crept into your brain about being physical, moving, anything like that. Remember that time that you had like a fun day out in the summer running around with your friends or doing something physical. We try to put everyone in that place. And whether that's through the silliness that we do, the warm-ups that we do, the way we kind of just interact with everybody when we host a run, we try to put people back in that place so that when you're with your friends, you're just having fun. And the running is just a way that happens. Find the pace that works for you and run it, talk to people, make some friends. And what's exciting, and I was talking about this with my partner last night at one of our runs, and it was like, there's just these different clumps of people that met because they run the 8:30 pace, or they run the 11:30 pace, or they ran the 1 mile. And you know what? They decided they're going to do 2 miles for the first time. And so they went back out there. And now that 6-person group is tight because they're like, we finally did the thing that you've been trying to do. So YRC really focuses on that aspect of building the community. And to answer your first question, finding friends and those quote unquote accountability partners is just, your friends are doing it. In this case, jump off the bridge and join a run club and enjoy yourself and find a way of being in motion.
Well, let's talk about goal setting, because I feel like goals are often a thing when you get started with something or you're picking it back up. I'm curious what y'all think. Like, which is more approachable to you, a distance goal or a speed goal?
Oh, and I think Donald might agree with me with this, but Donald, keep me honest. I would say distance is the thing that I would start with. That's what I started with. And I say that from a sake of, if my goal when I first started running more consistently was I want to be able to run 3 miles, and I don't care how long it's going to take. I'm going to try to get myself into a place that made sense for me.
Dan, you and I are on the same page. See, my partner and I argued about this because he said, no, absolutely speed, because you can make gains and you can get competitive with yourself. Like, speed's the way to go.
I think it is the way to go if you want to be competitive with yourself. But if you're trying to be kind to yourself and figure out what makes sense to your body, what makes sense for you growing, and what makes sense for you like right now, I think if you just say, I'm going to try to do that distance and I'm going to work my way up. But if you just set that one goal that feels really attainable and achievable because you know what 3 miles is. Wherever your house is, you can probably point on a map and say, that's 3 miles away. I want to be able to run there and back. That's an easier goal, at least in my mind, to like wrap my head around than trying to say, I need to get to 6-minute miles immediately.
What do you think, Donald? It's beginning to sound like maybe this is a personality test.
This is totally personality dependent. And I think there's a third option. And I think the third option is actually where the healthiest part lies. And that is in weekly frequency, whether it's like, can I do 5 days a week, or I'm setting out to be able to run for 20 minutes, 3 or 4 days a week. Can I consistently hit that?
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Well, one more just kind of about this process of getting started. I have had this debate with so many friends. I am curious what y'all think. Do you think that there is such a thing as an easy run in the city of Pittsburgh?
Totally. You can avoid hills.
Okay, where?
So my favorite run that is minimal hilly, not very hilly. I run from Point Breeze. My gym is by Westinghouse Park. So I'll run to the cemetery and I'll run down, it's called Tranquil Trail, down the hill, down the main part of Frick Park. You get the run downhill and it's mostly flat all the way down to like
mostly flat. That's always a caveat here.
And then you run all the way down to like the hollow and it's like 2 miles and you can turn back around. It's a slight hill. You could also just literally run on Penn Avenue. Once you get into Bloomfield to Wilkinsburg is all flat on Penn Avenue.
It is super flat, but then you have to do things like dodge traffic, which is another thing. Dan, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I would say that there's definitely places that make run easier, but I want to say one flat out thing for everyone that runs in the city of Pittsburgh. We are running in the city of Pittsburgh, which means we are going to run hills, which means that no matter what race you go to, you're already a badass runner because you've been able to take on the Pittsburgh hills in your easy runs every morning. And so what I would say is that, one, have that as a badge of honor. Nowhere else has to deal with that unless you live in, I don't know, you live in the Rockies or something. But like, if you can find flat stretches of pavement, do that. I'm a fan of running through the Strip District, but usually kind of one on the side or off streets as someone that has gotten the brunt of the hood of a car. Don't be like me. Watch your stoplight signs. But basically what I'm saying is that you can find those areas if you're careful. But trails are fantastic, and there's a lot of really good paved trails. So like if you want to go to the Millvale Trail, park at their little house parking lot area, that's all flat along the river. It's paved. It's
and
relatively
it can take
easy.
You pretty far. Like you can take that
Absolutely.
trail all the way down to like where the old prison is, and then you can get to Southside. You can go all along the Mon on the East End side. It goes really far.
The South Side's flat. Almost all of them are flat, actually. Yeah. Between the 10th Street Bridge and Hot Metal Bridge is flat on both sides.
I mean, you got to go up some hills to get across those bridges, but I'll give it to you.
And I would say one more thing, too, if you're trying to figure out the best places to run. Honest to God, if you're just trying to build that habit, which really is the start of anyone's running journey, just try to build a habit, get out, run, walk, get up in the morning, get home from work, whatever it is, find the clothes you feel awesome wearing when you want to do your run. Figure out what is the most accessible way for you to do something so you don't have to get in the car and go or anything of those things. If you can find a route, download Strava, plan your route. If you can find a route that you like running through, that's beautiful. Pittsburgh, I mean, it's spring now, so there's going to be a lot of beautiful trails that you can go through. Find the route that is most accessible and that could be the most consistent thing for you. And as someone that just likes finding that one thing and doing it consistently to have myself be accountable, you can figure out what that looks like for you. You're going to have a great time, and you're going to find something that is a reprieve from whatever else you have to do every day, because that's your space. You can't text when you're running. You can't call anybody when you're running. When you're running, you're able to put that playlist on, separate yourself a little bit. And hey, I do go to therapy, but Donald, running is also a little bit of therapy. I would absolutely figure out what that easy thing is for you to do. What is that accountability thing for you to do? Find some friends to do it with you and enjoy the miles, as our mutual friend Roger would always say.
Well, Dan, Donald, this has been a blast. Where can folks find you?
You can find us. Our website's www.ghperformance, as in Global Human Performance, ghperformance.com. We're on Instagram at Global Human Performance. I'm at Coach Donald. So please reach out if you have questions. I love blabbering about this all day long. You can definitely catch me on a trail run too. If you want to just go and get vibes, and you'll see me at YRC mostly in like summers and falls.
Dan, what about you? Where can folks find YRC?
Yeah, for sure. So we're everywhere at Yin's Run Club, yinsrunclub.com. You can find where we run. We have runs every Wednesday at 6:30 at a rotating set of locations, usually at a bar or a brewery or some sort of like community-based space. We also do bi-weekly, every other week, trail runs at 10 a.m. Once a month, always at Frick Park in the lower parking lot. Once some other trail area of the city, trying to give everyone kind of a flavor of what are the other trails that you want to explore. And generally, if you have questions, just reach out to people. Reach out to me, reach out to Donald, connect with someone. Runners love talking about running. So if you want to ask us a question, we will absolutely answer.
Well, Dan, Donald, thank y'all so much. Flowers for both of you. Thank you for joining us here on CityCast Pittsburgh.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks for having us.
And that's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. Y'all, a confession. I actually talked to Dan and Donald for way longer than we are able to share with Yins today. So if you want their personal picks for more of the best places to go running in Pittsburgh, plus other running groups and stores you can tap into here in our region, keep your eyes on our main feed. We're going to have a bonus episode up with them super soon. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon.
I just turned 30, so I am absolutely doing warm-ups. I'm absolutely stretching. And it's absolutely necessary.
The warm-up gets much more intense after you turn 30.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. For 5Ks, I run like 2 miles to warm up for a 5K race.